Hi, my name is Damien. The story I'd like to tell you is very painful for my family and me, but my experience could probably help somebody, even though I don't know how. Well, just listen. I'm going to tell you what happened last Christmas. But first, let me explain what my life was like before that day. I had a pretty ordinary life. We have a big family. My mum, my dad, me, and my little brother and sister. We didn't have any serious problems, and we were just an ordinary happy family. We kept tight and had a kind and trustful relationship. Christmas was approaching, and so were some changes in my life. It was my last year at school, and I was going to college many miles away from my home and family. Just thinking about this made me uncomfortable, and even a little sad. And for that reason, I decided to prepare a little surprise for my parents and siblings. Christmas Eve, one of the most wonderful evenings to do something nice for the ones you love. For a long time, I thought about what present I could give everyone. I spoke about it with my friends and even asked my girlfriend. It had to be something unusual, but something that would be appropriate for both my parents and my younger brother and sister. And it had to be memorable. I wanted them to only have the best memories about my last family Christmas before I went to college. Finally, I figured out the right idea. I discovered that genealogical DNA tests had become very popular and easily accessible. Neither mum or dad knew anything about their ancestors, and I thought it'd be interesting and amusing. As for my brother and sister, they would definitely enjoy an adventure. A trip to a real laboratory, where cheerful lab workers would take some saliva from each of us, and then we would find out something intriguing about who our ancestors were. The plan worked out perfectly in my head, so I paid for 5 tests, one for each person in my family. And then Christmas came. We had a nice dinner, talking and playing table games. We even sung a couple of Christmas carols together and took some pictures in front of the Christmas tree. We then exchanged presents. I decided to save mine for the very end and hinted heavily that I had a massive surprise. And it all went well. Dad nodded approvingly and said that it would be an interesting and educational family activity. My younger brother and sister didn't fully understand the idea, but were intrigued, as they were supposed to be. But Mum behaved very strangely. When she heard about DNA testing, she became extremely nervous. She said that I had spent a lot of money for nothing and that our family doesn't need tests to prove our happiness, and that I should have never suggested such a ridiculous thing. Both Dad and I were bewildered by her reaction. But this was only the beginning. Mum started to yell at me. My mum, she had never, ever raised her voice before, but now we had a real drama on our hands, and it was Christmas Eve. We never succeeded in calming her down. So the youngsters went to bed in tears, and our parents left to go to their bedroom. And I just couldn't sleep. Mum and Dad were arguing all night. I saw my father packing his things and leaving, while giving me one last long hostile look. My mother looked exhausted and pointed at my siblings with her eyes, silently begging me to refrain from asking any questions in that moment. And when we started talking, I could not believe my ears. Mum told me that Dad was leaving us forever, and that he will probably be filing for a divorce soon. My Christmas surprise forced my mother to reveal an awful secret, and now I had to know it too. Neither me or my siblings were my father's biological children. Can you imagine how shocked I was? When my parents got married, they wanted to have a baby right away, but for some reason, nothing happened for a long time. My mother was really worried because my father really wanted and even insisted that they had kids, but he refused to go through any testing because he was positive that he was perfectly fertile. So my mother took her part of the tests in secret, and the test showed that she was in ideal health, as opposed to her husband. In order to save the relationship, my mother decided to take a dangerous step. She got pregnant from an anonymous donor. Of course, she didn't say anything to her husband about this, but that's how I was born. And when she saw how happy he was to have a baby, she repeated it 2 more times. And so my brother and sister were born. Her only requirement was that she had a donor with similar features to her husband, so that he would not suspect anything. I didn't know what to do or how to react. I mean, she was my mother, and she lied in the worst way in order to create a family and make my stepfather happy. And she succeeded. But suddenly, he declared that he didn't want to be with somebody else's children and left. Some time has passed. Our father, it seems, has changed his mind and tries to make contact with my younger brother and sister and me, but we are no longer one big happy family, and I can't judge my mother or approve what she has done. Her good intentions resulted in a disaster, as well as my desire to give an unforgettable present to my family.